The night I walked into that restaurant, I wasn't looking for a father. I wasn't looking for trouble, and I certainly wasn't looking for answers that would change my life. But that's exactly what I found. It started with something small, a mark, a crescent-shaped birthmark on the back of a man's hand, dark around the edges, fading toward the center. I had seen it before. My father had the exact same mark. I used to trace it with my finger when I was a child, sitting beside him during the few times he came home. I once asked him what it meant. He just smiled and said, "Some things don't need explaining." He died when I was 19. At least that's what we were told. No body, no funeral, no real answers. And now, years later, in a quiet private room halfway across the world, I was staring at that same marks on the hand of a man everyone else in the room was afraid to look at. I should have walked away, I should have said nothing, but I had spent too many years living with questions. So I stepped forward, looked him in the eye and said, "Sir, my father had that same birthmark. My name is Tigist. It means patience. My mother gave me that name because she said I entered the world quietly, as if I was taking my time to understand it before I spoke. I've been that way ever since. I was born in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and raised by my mother, Hiwat, a woman who worked with her hands and carried her strength in silence. She was a seamstress, but more than that, she had a way of seeing people clearly. She understood things others didn't say. My father was different. He wasn't really part of our daily life. He came and went. Sometimes months, sometimes years would pass without a word. Then suddenly he would appear for a few days as if nothing had changed. When I was 5, he came. When I was 11, he came again. Both times he stayed only 3 days, and both times he left before sunrise without saying goodbye. Even as a child, I knew something wasn't right. But I didn't know what. Then, when I was 19, we were told he was gone. A stranger came to our door, a Korean man we had never seen before. He handed my mother an envelope and said only one thing. He asked me to bring this. There was money inside, but no explanation, no answers. My mother grieved the only way she knew how, fully, deeply, and then quietly as she returned to her work and her life. But I couldn't let it go. Something didn't feel finished. So years later, I followed the only lead I had. It brought me to Seoul, South Korea. By day, I was a university student, but in my heart, I was searching for the truth about my father. And that search led me to a man I never expected to meet, a man who carried the same mark. My first meeting with Kang Junho was not dramatic. It was a gallery opening in Gangnam. My professor had invited me, insisting that Korean contemporary art would deepen my thesis. I wore an emerald green dress, my mother's design, sent with me from Addis like secret armor stitched with love. He was across the room when I entered. And even before I knew his name, before I understood anything about who he was or what he represented, something in the air around him was different. People kept a small, invisible radius of space around where he stood, not from fear exactly, but from the kind of unconscious deference that living creatures show toward something that holds real power. He was not the loudest man in the room. He was not performing anything. He simply existed with a completeness that most people spend their whole lives reaching for. Then I saw his hand. He was holding a glass, and his left hand rested lightly on the table beside him, and on the back of it, dark at the edges, pale at the center, shaped like a half-moon that never fully rose, was the mark. My breath left my body. My father's mark, identical, on the hand of a stranger in a city 10,000 kilometers from home. I stood completely still for what felt like a long time. My mind was running very fast while my body refused to move. I told myself it was coincidence. I told myself birthmarks were not fingerprints. I told myself to be rational, to be careful, to be the patient woman my name demanded. And then he looked up, directly at me. Across the entire room, through all the people and the art, and the careful noise of social performance. His eyes found mine with the precision of someone who had learned long ago to notice things others missed. He crossed the room. "You are staring," he said. His English was precise, measured. each word selected deliberately like a man who understood that language was a form of power. "I know," I said. "I apologize, I noticed something." "What did you notice?" I almost said it then. I almost pointed to his hand and told him everything. But something stopped me, not fear, not strategy, something more instinctual than both. A quiet internal voice that said, "Not yet. You do not have enough truth yet to speak into this." "Your stillness," I said instead. "Most people in rooms like this are performing, you are not." Something shifted in his face, not a smile. Something more interior than a smile, a small, private acknowledgement like a door opening 1 inch. "What is your name?" he asked. "Tigist," I said. He tried to say it. He did not get it right the first time. Almost no one does, and instead of apologizing or moving on, he asked me to say it again. Then again. He repeated it slowly, adjusting, listening to himself. It took 4 attempts before the sounds landed correctly. When they did, he nodded once, satisfied, as if correctness mattered to him in all things, even small ones. His name was Kang Junho. He was 38. What I learned about him gradually, carefully, and with growing alarm over the following weeks was this. He was one of the most powerful and feared men in Seoul's shadow world. He ran a network that moved money, influence, and dangerous silence through the city like blood through veins. Politicians called him privately and denied his existence publicly. Men who worked for him were loyal with the specific loyalty of people who understood that betrayal had permanent consequences. But he also, in those early weeks, asked me questions and waited for the full answers. He learned the correct way to say every Amharic word I taught him and practiced until he was certain. He told me once, quietly, that he had known someone from Ethiopia long ago, and when he said it, something passed over his face that I recognized from mirrors. Grief that had nowhere left to go. I stored that observation carefully. I was not yet ready to use it. Seoul is a city of extraordinary beauty and invisible walls. On the surface, lights, efficiency, food that makes you close your eyes, people who dress like living art. But underneath there are structures, codes. Silent borders that tell you where you belong and where you are merely tolerated. I crossed those borders daily simply by existing. I am a tall, black Ethiopian woman. In Addis, I was simply Tigist. In Seoul, I was a spectacle. People photographed me on the subway without asking. A woman in a market touched my arm to test the color. Men on the street called out words they thought I could not understand. Each incident alone was survivable. Together, accumulated over weeks and months, they created something heavier than any single moment. A constant low-level expenditure of dignity. A tax that only certain people are required to pay. I paid it without complaint, because what was the alternative? But I felt it, every single day. And then there was the specific wall that existed inside Junho's world. His closest lieutenant was a man named Seo, compact, watchful, fluent in the particular silence of men who managed dangerous information. 3 weeks after Junho and I began spending real time together, Seo found me alone after a dinner. He was polite. He was even, in his way, respectful. But his message was sharp as surgical steel. "You are intelligent," he said, standing very still the way controlled men do when they want you to understand they are choosing calm. "So I will speak to you as one intelligent person to another." Junho SSI has obligations that require a certain kind of order around him. You are a foreign student. You have no family here, no protection here. The people who watch him, who watch everyone connected to him, they will not see you the way he sees you. They will see a vulnerability. And in our world, vulnerabilities are used. He paused. "I am not threatening you, I am informing you." Then he left. I stood in that corridor for a full minute before I moved. Because here is what Seo did not understand, could not have understood, because he did not know what I knew. I was not in Junho's life because of romance or recklessness or naivete. I was there because a dead man had led me there, and I was leaving with answers, or I was not leaving at all. That night I called my mother. I did not tell her about Seo or Junho, or the birthmark, or any of the architecture of what I was walking through. I simply said I was tired, and that Seoul was beautiful in a way that sometimes made loneliness sharper, not softer. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Tigist. The place that is testing you is not punishing you. It is measuring you. Stand at your full height." I held the phone against my chest after we said goodbye. And then, 2 days later, I found the envelope. My mother had forwarded a package of old papers she had discovered while reorganizing the house. Inside a small manila envelope, creased and water-damaged at one corner, were 3 things: a photograph, a name, an address in Seoul. The photograph showed my father as a young man, perhaps 25, standing with another man of similar age who was unmistakably Korean. Their arms were around each other's shoulders, with the easy physical comfort of people who have survived something catastrophic together. They were both laughing. My father's face was more open and unguarded than I ever saw it in real life, a version of him that existed before whatever happened. On the back, in my father's handwriting, 2 names. Dawit Junho. I spent 2 weeks sitting with what I knew, turning it over, examining every edge. My mother is a woman who never cuts fabric until she is completely certain she understands it. I am her daughter. Then I made a reservation at the restaurant. I wore a plain black dress, no emerald armor this time. I wanted him to see me without any beautiful distractions. I wanted him to see only the question I was carrying. The room was heavy with expensive silence. Several men positioned at careful angles throughout the space. Low lighting. The particular atmosphere that serious power generates, not loud, not showy, just dense like the air before lightning. Junho saw me the moment I entered. I watched something happen in his posture, the specific adjustment of a man who has been waiting for a particular door to open for a very long time, and now finally hears the handle turning. I walked directly to him and I said it. "Hi sir, my father had the same birthmark." The room went absolutely still, not quiet, still. Like the held breath between lightning and thunder when you don't yet know how close the storm is going to land. He looked at my face, then at the back of his own hand, then at my face again. And the thing that happened in Kang Junho in that moment, I have no single word for it. Something structural gave way inside him. Something he had been holding in a very specific configuration for a very long time simply could not hold its shape anymore. "What is your name?" he said, almost a whisper. "Tigist," I said. "Dawit's daughter." The sound that came from him was not a word. It was older than words. It came from the part of a person that language has not yet reached and probably never will. He stood slowly. He walked to me. He looked at my face the way a person looks at a place they accepted they would never see again and have suddenly, impossibly, found themselves standing in front of. "He told me he had a daughter," Junho said. "He told me her name meant patience. He said she came into the world looking around carefully before she decided to cry." My throat closed completely. "Is he alive?" I said, because I had to ask it, because the absence of a body had lived inside me for 7 years like a question with no door. Junho was quiet for a long time. "Sit down," he said gently. "Tell me first," I said. He met my eyes. "He is gone, Tigist. I am sorry, but not the way you fear. He did not die running. He did not die alone. He died knowing you were safe, and for Dawit, that was the only thing that ever mattered." Something broke in me then, not dramatically, not loudly. The way a wall that has been standing under too much pressure for too long finally gives, quietly, completely, with a kind of relief underneath the collapse. I sat, and he told me everything. My father and Junho had met as young men, through a connection that ran between Addis Ababa and Busan, through a shipping corridor that carried goods and secrets in equal measure. They had saved each other's lives within the first year of knowing each other, twice, in circumstances that Junho described with a soldier's economy of detail, saying only. The kind of situations where you discover very quickly who a person actually is. They had worked together for nearly a decade. Built trust that was deeper than contract, deeper than money, the kind that only comes from shared danger and kept promises. But now came the part that rearranged everything I thought I understood about my father. There was a particular operation, Junho said carefully, a significant one. When the details became clear, what it would truly involve, Dawit received a photograph. He paused. Of you, 11 years old. Someone had taken it and sent it to him as information. As a reminder of what he stood to lose if he made the wrong choice. I stared at him. He looked at that photograph, Junho continued, for a very long time. Then he put it in his chest pocket, over his heart. And he told me he was done. He said he would not build a world on foundations that would eventually fall on his daughter. He said, Junho, some men are afraid of dying. I am afraid of her having to explain me. The room had ceased to exist around us. There was only this. Only these words landing one by one like stones into deep water. He walked away from everything, Junho said. He went into a kind of protected quiet. I arranged what I could to keep him safe, to redirect attention away from him. The money in the envelopes was not just support. It was a shield. Every month, it said to the people watching, this man is under protection. This man is not to be touched. And the Korean man who came to our door when he died was delivering the last protection payment. And a message I asked him to carry. What message? Junho reached into the inner pocket of his jacket and placed a folded piece of paper on the table between us. It was a letter. In my father's handwriting, addressed to me, dated 3 months before he died. Tigist, if this reaches you, it means I have gone, and Junho has found a way to honor a promise I made him make me make, that he would find you and give you this if I could not. I have no explanation that will be enough. A father who is absent has no words that fully cover the distance. I know this. I accept the cost of it, but I want you to know one thing. The mark on my hand, the crescent, the half-moon, Junho and I had it made together when we were 26. Not a gang symbol. Not a brand. A promise between two men who came from opposite ends of the earth and found, in each other, the thing that people spend whole lives searching for, someone who sees you fully and stays anyway. We called it the covenant of the incomplete moon. Because neither of us was whole, but together we were something closer to it. I left so the moon would never cast its shadow on you. Find Junho if the world leads you to him. He is a complicated man in a complicated world, but his heart, I can promise you, is not. He will know what to do with you. He will know what to do with the truth. Your patient, undeserving, completely devoted father, Dawit. I read that letter 3 times at the table. The 3rd time, I could no longer see the words because of what was in my eyes. And across the table, Kang Junho, the man the world feared, the man who moved power like weather through an entire city, sat with his hands folded and his eyes wet and did not pretend otherwise. We were just 2 people holding a dead man's love between us, trying not to drop it. Seo came to me himself, 10 days later, not to warn me this time. He stood at the door of the small cafe near my university, holding his hat in both hands the way Korean men do when they are genuinely uncomfortable, which is also when they are being genuine. I did not know who you were, he said. I did not know about Dawit SSI. I did not know what you carried when you walked in. He bowed, deeply, the full bow of real respect. I was protecting the wrong thing with the wrong information. I apologize. I looked at him for a long time. You were doing your job, I said. But next time you warn a woman away from something, make sure you know her whole story first. He almost smiled. Yes, he said. I am learning that. My mother came to Seoul 6 weeks later. I told her everything on a video call the week before she arrived. About Junho, about the birthmark, about the letter, about the covenant of the incomplete moon. I told her all of it, slowly, clearly, the way you hand someone something heavy and precious at the same time. She did not speak for almost a full minute after I finished. Then she said, "So he was protecting you that whole time?" "Yes," I said, another silence. "That is so like your father," she said. "To love so completely and so badly at the same time." She cried then, not the 7-day grief cry. Something smaller and more specific. The cry of a woman who has been given back, after years, the full shape of a story she had only ever had fragments of. When she arrived in Seoul, I took her to Junho. She looked at him the way she looks at fabric she has not yet decided about, thoroughly, without hurry, with those seamstress eyes that read the grain of a thing before they judge its quality. He stood and bowed to her with total respect. He said in careful Amharic he had been practicing. I know because he had asked me to teach him weeks before. And I had watched him write the words in a small notebook with the same focused precision he applied to everything. He said, Asterisk, your husband was the best man I have ever known. I am sorry I could not protect him forever. I will spend whatever time remains making sure his daughter is never alone in this world. My mother looked at him for a long time. Then she said in Amharic, which he could not fully understand yet, You have his eyes, not the color, the weight inside them. She turned to me. He is telling the truth, she said simply. And that was her verdict, and in our family, Hiwat's verdicts are final. I am still in Seoul. My thesis is almost complete. I came here studying international business, but what I have actually spent this year studying is something they do not offer degrees in, the architecture of love across impossible distances. How it survives years of silence, how it bends without breaking under the weight of secrets. How two people from the opposite ends of the earth can be connected by a dead man's promise and find, in that connection, something entirely alive. The covenant of the incomplete moon, two halves. Different origins, one thing together. I think about my father differently now, not as the ghost who came and went, not as the absence that shaped my childhood, but as a man who sat at the sharpest intersection of love and danger and chose, imperfectly, painfully, at enormous personal cost, to put his daughter on the safer side of that line. He could not be present, so he arranged for the world itself to protect me, and somehow, impossibly, it did. My father wrote in his letter, I only hope the truth is kind to her when she finds it. The truth was not kind, exactly. It was complete. And I have learned, slowly, in the way that people named Patience tend to learn things, that completeness is its own mercy. That a full, true, complicated story is infinitely more nourishing than a comfortable, incomplete one. That the answers you are most afraid to seek are often the ones that, once found, allow everything else to finally breathe. I found a father in a dead man's letters. I found a guardian in the most dangerous room in Seoul. I found myself in the gap between what I feared and what I was willing to walk toward anyway. My name is Tigist. It means patience. And my father, who knew me before I knew myself, gave me exactly the right name for exactly the life he knew I would have to live. I only wish I could tell him he was right. Thank you for listening to this story. If it meant something to you, there's more like it here. You're always welcome to come back for more.